Whether you own a vintage muscle car or more typical transportation, Pat Goss has some advice that could help you out of a sticky situation. Pat?
Have you ever had one of those days, John, when nothing seems to go right? Maybe it's a flat tire on the way to an important meeting, or maybe in the middle of your vacation, in the middle of nowhere, the car dies. Well, we can't prevent things like that from happening, but we can help you prepare for the worst. Now, when anything like this happens, you have to be conscious of safety, and that means that you have to get the car off of the road as far as possible. Now, one of the things that you might want to consider in doing that is that you might want to have in the car a safety reflective vest to wear, especially at night, so that oncoming cars can see you. Secondly, you want them to be able to be aware of the fact that the car is disabled. Here is a typical type of flare, but keep in mind that these flares, these are the type that you light. You light these, they only last for either 15 or 30 minutes. So if you're going to be away from the car, these might not be the best thing. They could burn out and leave the car vulnerable. Here's the best thing right here. This is a trucker's triangle. They generally come in sets of 2 or 3. You set these out, they reflect the light to the oncoming cars and let the cars know that there's a disabled vehicle along the side of the road. These, of course, they stay there. They don't burn out, and they protect the car, especially if you have to leave it. Okay, now, we have the car safe. Maybe we want to attempt to perform some basic repairs to try to get it going again. Well, there are some things that each and every car on the road should have. First off, you should always have a tire gauge. This is mandatory. Secondly, you should always have a flashlight in the car, be it a small one like this or a large one. You must have a flashlight. Now, to perform minor repairs, because lots of times the things that will disable the car could be easily and quickly repaired if you had some basic tools. Here is a multi-pointed screwdriver. Has interchangeable tips on it so that it can be a straight-bladed, a Phillips, or a Torx-headed screwdriver. This takes care of all of those types of screws. You want one of those. You also want a pair of needle nose pliers. This gets you into those tight places. A pair of slip joint pliers. They act like a wrench for a lot of things, and they give you a lot of capabilities as far as turning awkward shaped things. Over here, this is an adjustable wrench. Always want one of those, but you don't want it too big. Big ones typically are going to be too clumsy. A small ball-peen hammer is also a good piece of equipment to have. Now, if you really want to be professional about it and cover all of the bases, over here we have a set of open-end box wrenches. Make sure that your car has either metric or normal bolts and nuts on it, and buy either metric or standard open-end box wrenches. Now, some of the things that you need as far as parts are concerned. The most typical thing that is going to give you a problem are going to be electrical problems. The most typical electrical problems are going to be blown fuses. You want an assortment of fuses. Now, here is the old type of glass fuse. Don't be fooled and buy those just automatically. Find out exactly what type of fuses your car has and get the proper types. The most typical thing that you're going to find in a modern car is right here, this one with the 2 prongs on it. That's been around for several years now, but now there are 2 new types of that style of fuse. We have this little mini fuse that we're seeing quite frequently, and over here this big maxi fuse. Both of those are difficult to find. If your car has them, carry spares with you. Now, one of the other things that you would want here, plastic electrical tape. I want a roll of that. That helps you patch bare wires and that sort of thing. Here we have plastic wire ties. These are used to tie things up. If something breaks and starts to hang down, you can hold it in place with these tie wraps. Then, a spare fan belt. You know, if a fan belt breaks, you're out of business. One of the more typical things that you're going to find that causes problems, broken radiator or heater hoses. Here we have a hose repair kit. Good thing to have. Get you to the nearest repair shop. Couple of basic things, an extra quart of oil, some extra brake fluid, It's a good idea to have a fire extinguisher in your car always. You might want to have a first aid kit. That is something good to have. Now over here, this is probably luxury. This is a tire pump. Plugs into the cigarette lighter, pumps up the flat tire. Very, very handy in many cases. Now you have all of this stuff. You have to keep it in the car. How do you do that? Here we have a plastic toolbox. Why plastic? Well, because trunks are typically damp. Metal toolboxes tend to rust and make a mess of the toolbox and the trunk of the car. One last thing, you're going to put all these metal tools in this toolbox. They're going to tend to rust even though they're in a plastic box. Here's a little trick. Take some brown wrapping paper, soak it with oil, wrap the metal tools in this wrapping paper before you put them in the toolbox. Keeps the tools from rusting. Now, if you do all of this, you're going to be prepared for any of those emergencies that you could actually deal with on the highway. And if you have a problem with your car, write to me. If I use your letter on the air, I'll send you a Motor Week t-shirt. The address is Motor Week, Owings Mills, Maryland, 21117. That's Motor Week, Owings Mills, Maryland, 21117.